The secure conference room at Tim's house buzzed with tension as representatives from MI5, Interpol, and the Royal Protection Command assembled for an emergency briefing. Morrison found himself at the center of an international incident that had evolved far beyond a simple customs inspection. Dame Patricia Richardson, deputy director of MI5, reviewed the evidence with the methodical precision that had earned her respect throughout the intelligence community. Her analysis would determine whether Tom Parker Bowles was an unwitting civilian or a deliberate participant in complex intelligence operations. The pattern suggests coordination between private art recovery networks and official counterterrorism efforts, Dame Richardson began. However, Mr. Parker Bowles appears to have been operating without full knowledge of the broader implications of his activities. Dr. Hampton had spent the previous 6 hours analyzing encrypted communications and financial transactions discovered during the aircraft inspection. Her findings painted a picture of international cooperation that operated in the shadows between legitimate business and intelligence work. The stolen artifacts were being tracked through a network that includes auction houses, private collectors, and insurance investigators, Dr. Hampton explained. Tom Parker Bowles provided social access to circles that traditional law enforcement couldn't penetrate. Commissioner James Walsh from the Metropolitan Police expressed concern about civilian involvement in operations that could expose them to retaliation from criminal organizations. The safety implications for the royal family were significant if terrorists discovered their connection to art recovery efforts. We're discussing a member of the royal family unknowingly participating in counterterrorism operations, Commissioner Walsh stated. The security implications extend beyond Mr. Parker Bowles to include potential threats against Queen Camilla and King Charles. Inspector Knox had contacted museums and galleries across Europe to verify the legitimacy of the recovered artifacts. His findings revealed a sophisticated network of theft and recovery that had been operating for nearly 2 years. 12 major pieces have been recovered through this network, Inspector Knox reported. Combined value exceeds £8 million, and intelligence suggests these items were intended to secure funding for weapons purchases by 3 different terrorist cells. The revelation that art theft was being used to finance terrorism added urgency to understanding how deeply Tom Parker Bowles had become involved in intelligence operations. His cooperation with recovery efforts had inadvertently made him a valuable asset in disrupting criminal financing networks. Captain Webb provided additional insight during extended questioning by MI5 operatives. His military background and current employment with a private security firm revealed connections to former intelligence officers who had established the art recovery network. The operation began when insurance companies realized traditional law enforcement couldn't penetrate the social circles where stolen art was being traded, Captain Webb explained. They needed people with legitimate social connections who could attend private auctions and collector gatherings. Morrison learned that Parker Bowles had been recruited through his food and wine writing career, which provided natural access to wealthy collectors and international social events where stolen art frequently changed hands. Dame Richardson's investigation revealed that terrorist organizations had begun using high-value art as collateral for weapons purchases because traditional banking systems were increasingly monitored by international intelligence agencies. Stolen artifacts provided untraceable value that could be easily transported across borders. The terrorists weren't selling the art directly, Dame Richardson explained. They were using it as security deposits for weapons purchases, with the understanding that the art would be returned after successful attacks. This made tracking and recovery extremely difficult. The complexity of the operation impressed even experienced intelligence professionals. Terrorist cells would steal valuable art, use it as collateral for weapons, and plan to retrieve it after completing their attacks. The system provided funding while maintaining the artifact's value for future operations. Dr. Hampton discovered that Tom Parker Bowles had unknowingly helped recover artifacts intended to finance attacks in London, Paris, and Rome. His social connections had provided access to private sales where intelligence agencies couldn't operate openly. His involvement prevented approximately £4 million worth of terrorist financing, Dr. Hampton reported. The weapons purchases that would have been secured by these artifacts included explosives and automatic weapons intended for coordinated attacks. However, Morrison remained concerned about the long-term implications of civilian involvement in intelligence operations. Tom Parker Bowles had been effective precisely because he was genuinely unaware of the broader context of his activities. "We face a delicate balance," Morrison noted. His effectiveness depended on his authentic behavior as a legitimate collector and food critic. Full briefing on the intelligence aspects might compromise future operations. Dame Richardson agreed that Parker Bowles should be gradually informed about the counterterrorism implications of his work while maintaining his cover as a private collector interested in art recovery for insurance purposes. The investigation concluded with recognition that private citizens could play valuable roles in counterterrorism efforts when their natural social connections provided access that official intelligence agencies couldn't obtain through traditional methods. Commissioner Walsh established new protocols for civilian involvement in intelligence operations that included enhanced security measures for family members and careful monitoring of potential retaliation threats. Tom Parker Bowles was briefed on selected aspects of the counterterrorism implications while maintaining operational security for ongoing investigations. His cooperation would continue under enhanced protection protocols that considered his royal family connections. The aircraft inspection that had begun with suspicions of smuggling concluded with appreciation for innovative counterterrorism methods that utilized civilian expertise in disrupting criminal financing networks. Morrison reflected on how the investigation had demonstrated the evolving nature of modern security threats and the creative approaches required to combat international terrorism. Private citizens with specialized knowledge and social connections could provide capabilities that traditional intelligence agencies couldn't replicate. The Royal Protection Command implemented new procedures for evaluating unusual activities by royal family members, recognizing that legitimate security work might sometimes appear suspicious without proper context. Dame Richardson's final report recommended expanded cooperation between private sector specialists and intelligence agencies, while emphasizing the importance of protecting civilian participants from retaliation and ensuring their activities remained within legal boundaries. The case of Tom Parker Bowles and the intercepted artifacts became a model for innovative counterterrorism cooperation that leveraged private sector expertise while maintaining strict operational security and legal compliance. 6 months later, the network had recovered additional stolen artifacts worth over £15 million and prevented financing for multiple planned terrorist attacks across Europe, demonstrating the effectiveness of unconventional intelligence cooperation methods. The aircraft touched down on runway 25 with unusual precision, its pilot executing a textbook landing despite the reported medical emergency aboard. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison watched from the control tower as emergency medical teams positioned themselves according to standard protocol, while his Alpha team members took discreet positions around the designated inspection area. Tom Parker Bowles emerged from the aircraft with surprising composure for someone who had declared a medical emergency. The 50-year-old food critic and businessman appeared healthy and alert as he descended the aircraft steps, his expensive tailored suit showing no signs of distress. Morrison's suspicions immediately intensified. "Medical emergency appears resolved, sir," reported Sergeant Chun through her radio headset. "Subject shows no signs of physical distress and declined immediate medical attention." Dr. Hampton, now positioned in the mobile command unit near the tarmac, began cross-referencing facial recognition data with known associates in international smuggling networks. Her computers hummed quietly as sophisticated software analyzed every person who had been within proximity of the aircraft during its journey. "We have positive identification on the pilot," Dr. Hampton announced. "Captain Marcus Webb, former Royal Air Force, clean record but interesting financial history. 3 property purchases in Switzerland over the past 18 months, each paid for in cash." Morrison noted the information while observing the cargo unloading process through high-powered binoculars. Ground crew members were handling several large crates with unusual care, their movements suggesting the contents were both valuable and fragile. Inspector David Knox from the Metropolitan Police Art Crime Unit had arrived to assist with identifying potentially stolen artifacts. His expertise in tracking stolen cultural property had made him invaluable in similar cases, and his presence indicated the seriousness of the suspected violations. Those containers match the descriptions from the Monaco theft report, Inspector Knox observed, studying the unloading process. However, the weight distribution suggests they might contain more than antique furniture. The way the crew is handling them indicates possible electronic equipment or documents. As Alpha Team approached to begin the official inspection, Tom Parker Bowles displayed none of the nervousness typically associated with smuggling operations. Instead, he greeted the officers with professional courtesy and immediately offered full cooperation with their procedures. "Gentlemen, I understand you have security concerns about my cargo," Parker Bowles said calmly. "I'm happy to provide complete documentation for everything aboard my aircraft. In fact, I was hoping to speak with Royal Protection Command about these items." Morrison felt a shift in the investigation's dynamic. Smugglers typically attempted to avoid inspection, not invite it. Parker Bowles' cooperative attitude suggested either exceptional confidence in his legal position or a more complex situation than initially suspected. "Sir, we'll need to examine all cargo and documentation," Morrison replied, maintaining formal protocol. "This includes any items not listed on your original manifest." "Absolutely understood," Parker Bowles responded, producing a leather portfolio filled with official documents. "You'll find everything is properly documented, including some rather sensitive materials I've been transporting on behalf of certain government interests." Dr. Hampton's voice crackled through Morrison's earpiece with urgent information. "James, preliminary financial analysis shows the cryptocurrency transactions correspond with payments for recovered stolen artifacts. This might not be smuggling. It could be recovery operations." The first crate was opened under careful supervision, revealing an ornate 18th-century escritoire that matched exactly the description of a piece stolen from the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris 6 months earlier. However, the accompanying documentation told an unexpected story. Inspector Knox examined the authentication papers with growing amazement. These are legitimate recovery certificates issued by Interpol's Art Crime Department. This piece was recovered through a private investigation funded by insurance companies. Additional crates revealed similar scenarios, stolen artifacts with complete recovery documentation, suggesting a sophisticated operation to retrieve stolen cultural property through private networks that law enforcement couldn't penetrate. Parker Bowles explained his involvement with remarkable candor. "My background in food and wine led to connections with international collectors and auction houses. When insurance companies began losing millions to art theft, they approached me to help establish recovery networks using my social connections." The revelation transformed the investigation from criminal smuggling to authorized recovery operations. However, Morrison knew that private art recovery existed in legal gray areas that required careful evaluation. Dr. Hampton discovered additional layers to the operation through encrypted communications found on a laptop in the aircraft. "James, this goes much deeper than art recovery. These communications suggest involvement in recovering stolen artifacts being used to finance terrorist operations." The terrorism connection elevated the investigation to national security levels, requiring immediate consultation with MI5 and international intelligence agencies. What had begun as a routine customs inspection was becoming a major counterterrorism operation. The cryptocurrency transactions weren't payment for smuggling. Dr. Hampton continued her analysis. They were payments to informants providing intelligence about terrorist financing networks using stolen art as collateral for weapons purchases. Captain Webb, the aircraft pilot, provided additional context when questioned by Alpha Team members. His background included specialized training in covert operations and connections with former intelligence officers now working in private security consulting. "We've been tracking stolen artifacts through underground markets for 18 months, Captain Webb explained. Several high-value pieces were being used to secure funding for planned attacks across Europe. Our job was to recover them before they could be converted to operational funding." Inspector Knox confirmed the legitimacy of several recovery operations by contacting his counterparts at Interpol headquarters in Lyon. The international cooperation revealed a network of private investigators, insurance companies, and intelligence agencies working together to combat art-funded terrorism. However, Morrison noticed discrepancies in some documentation that suggested not everything was as straightforward as presented. Certain pieces had authentication papers that seemed too recent for items supposedly recovered months earlier. There's something else here, Morrison confided to Dr. Hampton. Some of these recovery operations might be covers for legitimate intelligence gathering on terrorist financing networks. But I suspect Tom Parker Bowles stumbled into something larger than he initially understood. The complexity of the situation required careful navigation between supporting legitimate counterterrorism efforts and ensuring that British citizens weren't being used unknowingly in international intelligence operations. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the tarmac, Morrison realized that resolving this investigation would require coordination with multiple government agencies and international partners. The items discovered weren't simply stolen artifacts. They were evidence of a sophisticated network combating terrorism through unconventional means. Tom Parker Bowles had inadvertently become a valuable asset in disrupting terrorist financing. But his involvement raised questions about civilian participation in intelligence operations that could compromise both his safety and the royal family's security. The morning air at RAF Nordholt was crisp and quiet when Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison received the encrypted radio transmission that would change everything. As head of the Royal Protection Command's Special Operations Unit, Morrison had handled countless security protocols, but nothing quite like this. "Sir, we have a Code 7 situation," came the voice of Sergeant Sarah Chun, her usual calm demeanor slightly strained. "Private aircraft registration GCMB requesting immediate landing clearance. Flight originated from Monaco, destination unknown until 30 minutes ago." Morrison's jaw tightened as he processed the aircraft's registration. He knew that tail number well. It belonged to Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's eldest son from her first marriage. The businessman had maintained a relatively low profile since his mother's marriage to King Charles, but his recent travels had caught the attention of intelligence services across Europe. "What's the concern level, Sergeant?" Morrison asked, already moving toward the command center where multiple screens displayed real-time aircraft tracking data. "Intelligence flagged unusual cargo manifest discrepancies from the Monaco departure, sir. Additionally, the aircraft made 2 unscheduled stops, one in Geneva, another in Luxembourg. Each stop lasted exactly 47 minutes. The precision of those stops troubled Morrison. In his 15 years of royal protection experience, he had learned that calculated timing often indicated careful planning. Innocent travel rarely followed such exact patterns. Dr. Elizabeth Hampton, the Royal Protection Command's chief intelligence analyst, appeared at Morrison's shoulder with a thick file tucked under her arm. Her reputation for thoroughness was legendary within the service, and her presence meant the situation had escalated beyond routine security checks. "James, we need to discuss this privately," Dr. Hampton said, gesturing toward the secure briefing room. "The cargo manifest shows several items that don't match standard customs declarations. More concerning is what's not listed at all." Inside the soundproof briefing room, Dr. Hampton spread several documents across the polished mahogany table. Satellite images, financial transaction records, and communication intercepts painted a complex picture that made Morrison's stomach clench with unease. "Tom Parker Bowles filed a standard personal travel manifest 3 days ago," Dr. Hampton began, pointing to the first document. "However, ground crew reports from Monaco indicate cargo loading that far exceeded declared weight limits. We're talking about approximately 800 pounds of undeclared items." Morrison studied the satellite images showing the aircraft on various tarmacs. Even from space, the loading patterns were clearly visible, multiple large containers being transferred under cover of darkness at each stop. "What kind of items are we discussing, Doctor?" Morrison asked, though he suspected the answer would complicate an already delicate situation. "That's where things become interesting," Dr. Hampton replied, pulling out a series of photographs taken by undercover operatives. "Our sources in Monaco report antique furniture loading. Specifically, several pieces that match descriptions from a recent theft report filed by the French National Museum system." The implications hit Morrison immediately. If Tom Parker Bowles was involved in smuggling stolen artifacts, the scandal would devastate the royal family's reputation just as King Charles was working to modernize the monarchy's public image. "However," Dr. Hampton continued, "there's more. Financial intelligence suggests these artifacts might be covers for something else entirely. Banking records show unusual cryptocurrency transactions totaling nearly £2 million, all processed during the exact time frames of his aircraft stops. Morrison rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. Intercepting a royal family member's aircraft required authorization from the highest levels of government. Yet allowing potentially illegal cargo to enter British airspace unopposed could compromise national security. What's our legal standing for interception? Morrison asked, knowing that royal privilege complicated standard law enforcement procedures. The Terrorism Prevention Act gives us authority to inspect any aircraft entering British airspace if intelligence suggests potential security threats, Dr. Hampton explained. Additionally, customs regulations allow searches when cargo manifests show significant discrepancies. A sharp knock interrupted their discussion. Sergeant Chen entered with an urgent expression that immediately put Morrison on high alert. "Sir, the aircraft has just requested priority landing clearance due to a declared medical emergency aboard," Chen reported. Additionally, air traffic control reports the pilot seems unusually nervous during radio communications. Morrison felt his instincts sharpen. Medical emergencies were often used as cover for avoiding standard customs procedures. The timing seemed too convenient, especially given the intelligence concerns already surrounding the flight. "Deploy Alpha Team to the airport immediately," Morrison ordered. "Full inspection protocol, but maintain diplomatic sensitivity. This is still a member of the royal family, regardless of our suspicions." Dr. Hampton gathered her files quickly. "James, there's one more thing you need to know. Our contacts in the art world indicate that several pieces matching the stolen museum items have been offered for private sale through underground networks. The asking prices suggest someone believes they have legitimate provenance documents." The puzzle pieces were forming a disturbing picture. If Tom Parker Bowles was involved in an international art smuggling operation, the damage to the monarchy could be irreparable. Yet Morrison's duty was clear. No one was above the law, regardless of their family connections. As Morrison's team prepared for what could become the most sensitive royal investigation in decades, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something far more complex than simple smuggling. The careful timing, the cryptocurrency transactions, and the sudden medical emergency all suggested a level of sophistication that pointed toward organized criminal activity. The private jet carrying Queen Camilla's son was now 20 minutes from landing, and Morrison knew that the next few hours would either clear up a misunderstanding or expose a scandal that could shake the very foundations of the modern British monarchy. Outside the command center, storm clouds were gathering over London, creating an atmosphere that seemed to mirror the brewing crisis. Morrison had handled many difficult situations during his career, but intercepting a royal family member's aircraft was uncharted territory that would test every protocol and procedure his team had ever learned. The radio crackled with final approach communications as the aircraft began its descent toward RAF Nordholt. Whatever secrets lay hidden in the cargo hold were about to be revealed, and Morrison could only hope his team was prepared for whatever they might discover.